Hey, seventh graders, hope you really enjoyed Easter break. We are going to finish up chapter 9 in the next few classes, and then we're going to have some sort of assessment the following week. If you have not already, please check out the video that I posted prior to this regarding the homework from 9.4. You guys did a really good job overall. There's just a couple things I want to clear up. So make sure you're watching that video as well. Today we're going to focus on 9.5 volume, and we're going to look at volumes of prisms and cylinders. So for the volumes and cylinders, a volume of prisms and cylinders, we are thinking about what or how much fits inside a shape. So if you pop a lid off of a pop can, how much fits inside of there? If you pop a lid off a tuna can, how much fits inside of there? So couple of things. You're going to have some note cards today. One for a definition, which is the definition of volume, and the other note cards are for formulas. Okay, so the definition of volume is very simple. It's how many cubes it can hold. Now, cubes is kind of a generic unit. It doesn't necessarily have to be cubes. It could be something like liquid. Like when we're talking about real world examples, it could be liquid. How much cereal does something hold? That's volume. So if you imagine, like I said, popping open a lid, what can you put inside of it? Okay, so we're going to go to an example. Now, if this is too hard to copy, you don't have to copy this down. Just kind of watch what's going on. And I know you guys have done this before because I know I've helped my kids with homework in previous grades. Where you've looked at volume. So this is a review. What we're really going to focus on in this section, like I said, are the formulas, okay? So if you look at this rectangular prism, we can count how many cubes are in each of the edges and then multiply them together. So if you look at this side, we have 4 cubes. This side we have 3 cubes, and they're 1 cube high. So if I take 4 times 3 times 1, I get 12. Now, something to note, this is length, width, and height. So if you think about the formula for area of a rectangle, it's length times width. We're just now adding the height component in there. The other thing I want you to notice, we're talking about volume, so our unit is going to be cubed because we're looking at 3 dimensions, okay? Perimeter, we were just looking at 1 dimension, essentially looking at the distance around the shape. So that would just be centimeters. Area, we were looking at length and width. So that was centimeters squared. And now finally with volume, we're looking at cubed or 3 sides. So it would be centimeters cubed. Okay. So let's go right to our first example. If we're taking, or first formula, volume of a prism, okay? We're taking base times height. Now the base is going to be composed of two dimensions. Okay, so if it's a triangle, like this one right here, this first one is a triangular prism. The base is a triangle. We have to think about, how do I find the base of a triangle? It's 1/2 base times height. Okay. And then you got to take the whole height of the shape. So that can get a little confusing. So that's why if you checked back at the review video that I did before this one, it is super important to be naming our shapes correctly. Okay. Over here you have a rectangular prism. Kind of looks like a cube. Either way, it's the same idea. You're taking the base, which is length times width, times the height. So let's go into a couple examples here. Okay, so again, we have a rectangular, or actually this is a square, square prism because we have a 4x4 for our base. This right here is the base. This is the base. And the edge, or the face, I should say, I'm sorry, is your height. Okay, so we're going to take the area of the entire base. The base is a square. It's the 4 times 4. Which gives us 16, and we're going to multiply it by the height. So we have 16 from our base, 12 from our height. When you multiply those together, you get 192. Don't forget your unit, which is feet cubed. And if you guys want to use calculators, that's fine, but I'm telling you right now, make sure you're writing out these formulas. Make sure you're writing down the numbers, because if something happens with a Google form and you did it on the calculator and then all of a sudden you hit submit and your computer crashes, you've lost all your work. So make sure you're doing your homework on another piece of paper, okay? Just like you normally would. All right, next we have a triangular prism. Here's the triangle. That's our base, okay? And our height is 6 centimeters. So to find the area of the triangle, we're going to take the formula of 1/2 base times height. And that would be 1/2 times 3 times 4. What's half of 12? 6. So the base, the triangular base, is 6 centimeters squared. Okay, then when you multiply that by the height of this 6, it gets a little confusing because the numbers are the same, but notice the color coding. You end up with 36 centimeters cubed. So that's how you find the volume for that. Okay, next. This is just like our first example. This looks like a little cute half stick of butter there. We have a square base of 3 by 3, and then we have a height of 8. So you're literally taking these three numbers and multiplying them together. 3 times 3 is 9. That's going to give us the base formula for the square. And then 9 times 8 gives us 72. So our volume is 72 inches cubed. If at any time you feel like confused, make sure you pause the video, maybe go back, watch it again. I know I go through these slides a lot faster than I do in class because I'm not stopping and getting your interaction. You're not stopping and asking questions. So please pause the videos if you need to, okay, at any point. That's the good and really nice thing about having a video. All right, again, we have a triangular prism. The base is a triangle. So we have a 3 by 3 triangle, or that's not the correct terminology. We have a triangle with a base of 3 and a height of 3, and then this whole shape has a height of 16. So I'm going to take 1/2 base times height, because it's a triangular base. So half of 9 is 4.5. And then I'm going to multiply that by 16, and I end up with 72 inches cubed. Okay. And I talked about this already, but if you have anything with volume with the 3 dimensions, you're going to use it as centimeters cubed. Okay, you can also say cubic inch, cubic centimeter. Either way is fine, just as long as you have that correct unit there. All right, now we're going to move on to cylinders. This is very similar to finding the volume of the prism in terms of using the base, the area of the base times the height. What makes it more confusing now is that we have a circle for a base. Anytime you have a cylinder, you have a circle for a base, okay? So the area of the circle, as we know, is pi r squared. So we're going to take the area of that circle to represent our base and multiply it by height. So when you write your formula down for cylinder, I wouldn't even write this first one down. That's just a generality. So write down volume of a cylinder equals pi r squared times height, or h. Okay, that should go on a note card as well. All right, so we have a can of tuna that's shaped like a cylinder. We want to find its volume to the nearest tenth, and we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So always start off with the formula. Volume equals pi r squared times height. And we're just going to start taking and plugging and chugging. This is my radius, 5. My height is 4.2, and I know that pi is simply a number, or 3.14. Okay? You're going to want to do order of operations. So you're going to want to do 5 squared first. When you multiply all those together, so it'll be 3.14 times 25 times 4.2, you get 329.7. Don't forget your unit of meters cubed. Okay? It's very straightforward. Just it's plugging into a formula. Okay, so just if you know the formula, you should be in good shape. All right, so I would ask you guys, if I have a cylinder right here with a radius of 7 and a height of 3.8 meters, can I find the volume? And you would all respond, yes, Mrs. Antos. And then I'd say, well, what's the formula? And someone would raise their hand and they would say volume equals pi r squared h. Okay, so start off by writing pi r squared h and then plug and chug. So you have 3.14 for pi, 7 for your radius, or 7 squared, and then 3.8 for your height. Again, order of operations tells me I have to do 7 squared first. And then when you multiply all those together, you get 584.668. We want to round to the nearest tenth. So our volume is about 584.7 meters cubed. Okay, now here comes the fun stuff. This is a composite figure. So if you go back to 9.3 when we talked about irregular and composite figures. Composite figures are just two shapes on top of each other, right? Before we were doing area, now we're doing volume. The process is the same. You find the volume of one shape, find the volume of the second shape, and you add them together. Okay, so if you look, we have a rectangular prism on the bottom, and we have a triangular prism on the top. Okay, so if you look at, this is basically what I just told you, but you take the volume of the prism plus the volume of the triangular prism, this should say rectangular prism, by the way, and go from there. Okay, so here we go. This is a little confusing. They kind of throw it all together, but if you're looking at this bottom shape, so ignore this triangular prism for a moment, you have a rectangular base, which is a 4x6. That's where this comes from, right here, this 4x6. And then you have a height of 12. That's this edge right here. So 4 times 6 times 12 represents this bottom shape. Okay, the top shape is a triangular prism. So the area for a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Okay, now, here's where it gets slightly confusing. We're seeing the triangle height is right here. That's the red dotted line, and it's 4 feet. This right here is the base of the triangle, which is the same dimension as this right here, which is 6 feet. Okay, so we're taking half of 4 times 6. That gives us the triangle's area. And then to make it the volume, we're going to multiply it by 6, which is this height right here. So I can't stand when the book uses the same numbers over and over again for the same problem, but hopefully you followed the mouse where I had my cursor and you can see what I'm talking about. If not, like I said, pause that video. Okay. When you multiply all these together, the first shape gives you a volume of 288. The second shape gives you a volume of 72. And when you add them, you end up with 360 feet cubed. Okay. This is the same thing, so I'm going to skip that. When you're doing homework tonight, like I said, make sure you are writing everything down on a piece of paper, sketch out the shapes, so that way if something happens technologically, is that a word? If there's technical difficulties, you have it on a piece of paper. There are not a ton of problems, okay? So try them all, get them all inputted into the Google form. And that is about it. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thanks.